Well, you just said we were going to do me. I was waiting for you to start.
No, yeah, you go ahead.
I need to go ahead because, okay.
Let's start that.
I'm sorry about that.
It's your show. You're
That's good. I forgot. Okay.
I'll let you take it.
All right. Yeah, we're finally here. Excited about the first show. My co-host, Zach Tyler, is primed and ready to talk to a couple of movers and shakers in the industry. One of the guys is worked for me here to visit Tuscaloosa, Stan Adams. He's now up there in Springfield, Missouri. And a real good friend, Auburn-Opekila tourism, Anthony Terling. So excited to get started.
Absolutely. That's what we plan to do here on the Reckoning Sports Tourism Podcast. I talked to some movers and shakers in the industry about their destinations, things that they've seen, tell some fun stories about the things that they see, because you see a lot of shit in this industry. I think you could attest. You've been in it for longer than I have. So we're looking forward to hearing about a bunch of great stories from a bunch of great people, and real excited to get started with Stan and Anthony today.
In 6 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Anyways, without further ado, Zach, let's get started talking to these guys a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll start with you, Stan. Just kind of tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate you guys having me on. Looking forward to the conversation. I know all of y'all very, very well, so this should be a good time. But yeah, a little background on myself. I was born in South Florida, specifically the Miramar, Florida area. If anyone's familiar with the South Florida area, that's really, I know they're called the Miami Dolphins, but they're not really in Miami. That's essentially the Miami Gardens, Miramar area. That's where I was born, lived down there for about 4 years, moved up a little more north to Stuart, Florida, lived there for about another 5-6 years, and then moved to Alabama in 2001, 2002 kind of time frame. Moved to Birmingham specifically. My dad's from Bessemer, Alabama. I had some family in Birmingham. Attended Oak Mountain school systems. So shout out to Oak Mountain High School. We don't win very much of anything, so I got to give us a shout when we do. So yeah, I went to Oak Mountain High School, and even from a young age, my dad being from Alabama, went to the University of Alabama. That was the only other option. There was no other option. I think my dad would possibly disown me if I decided to go anywhere else. So that was it. So I had an opportunity, went to University of Alabama undergrad for marketing in 2010 as a freshman. And then I got my master's in sports management in 2015. So that's just a little background on me. And then obviously we'll get into kind of how we got in the industry probably next. But yeah, that's a little quick snippet on me.
Yeah, let's hear it. Same question for you, Anthony. Tell us a little about your background.
Man, nice to be with you, Zach and Don. It's a pleasure and really an honor to be on the first show and with my buddy Stan. And like Stan said, it's talking to a bunch of people we know and friends, and obviously a wealth of knowledge of what we do in this industry. But I'm Anthony I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. But as Don said, I have a lot of roots in Pittsburgh. My dad and all my Terling family are from Pittsburgh. So I'm a Southern boy with some Pittsburgh roots. And so go Penguins, Pirates, Steelers, as me and Don always end a text or an email with. It's typically go Pens, but I like the Bucks and the Steelers, of course. But I know Don and I love our Pittsburgh and our Yinzers. But as far as me growing up, like I said, Montgomery, Alabama, I'm the opposite of Stan. My family was full-blown Auburn, all graduates of Auburn. I do have some family on the other side. But I chose the good side, the right side. We won't get into that debate too much on this, but we're all good friends. But at the end of the day, grew up, like a lot of people playing sports, loving just the aspects of being around it. And, one day my dad asked, "What do you want to do?" And I said, I love the business of sports. I don't just like playing it. I don't like watching it. I love the business piece of it. And so, with that kind of molding me and being around a lot of people, I also was around the blue gray game in Montgomery, if anybody knows about that. So I was on the sidelines as a kid doing stats and up in the press box. So it kind of molded me to get into this industry. But went to Auburn University, thought I was going to do some stuff in biology and medical, was not happy. Long story short, ended up having that conversation with my dad I mentioned ago, found one of my mentors who's a sport management professor, had worked in minor league baseball. The rest is history. I have 2 degrees in sport management, undergrad and master's. My first gig actually was volunteering, and then ended up being the TrackMan operator for the minor league baseball team for the Tampa Rays. So that really got me in it. But just growing up in Alabama, it's a sports crazed state. And so I think that kind of molded me to where I am now.
Right. Before we move on, we do need to give credit to our other guests today. Being beloved Pittsburgh Penguin fans, we need to acknowledge the Florida Panthers, don't we, Anthony?
Yes. Kudos to them. It was a fun series to watch. I mean, there's nothing better than playoff hockey, and certainly that series that happened. But kudos to them. Hey, as long as it's an entertaining game and an entertaining series, I'm happy.
Well, Stan's more of a basketball guy. He loves his Heat. I know that for sure. But I think he's acquired a taste for hockey here in the last couple of years.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I lived in South Florida when they went in '96. So I remember the craze that they had with all the rats and everything else and all that stuff. So that was cool, and everyone jumped on it. But then they were god awful for so many years. But it's been fun to kind of get into it. And like I said, I claim all the other terrible teams in South Florida. I would say I'm more of a bandwagon Panthers fan. I can't say that I've been diehard. I mean, they've been great the past couple of years, so I've been following them. But I wasn't there during the bad times, unlike my Marlins and Dolphins, which are pathetic organizations. But that's a whole other podcast for another day.
Hopefully one day soon my Sharks can join the ranks of the Pens.
There you go.
And finally get a cup. We faced the Pens a few years ago.
That's right.
I don't think we got swept. I think it was 4-1. You guys.
Was Carlson on the team then?
I think so. Yeah, it was a while. My Sharks fandom, I just went into my class actually the other day, yesterday actually, about when I moved out. I'm from California originally, Bay Area fan. I love my Giants. That's like the team I'm the most passionate about.
Nice, okay, yeah.
And they break my heart every year, of course. And the Niners, of course, do the same when they lose to the Chiefs, annually in the Super Bowl now. But the Sharks, when I moved out here, it was so hard to kind of keep up with them. And like I had to, it was like the social exchange theory, like how much of my effort am I going to put into following my sports?
Yes, yep.
I put all my eggs in following the Niners and the Giants instead of the Sharks. But maybe back when Celebrini in that first overall pick will eventually get us to a Stanley Cup. But
hey, you never know.
Lines of sports. Tell us how did you guys get into this profession, this industry, which is an exciting, demanding, time-consuming, but it's always so rewarding. Tell us how you got into it.
Yeah, want me to take this one, Anthony, first?
Yeah, go for it, Stan.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think sports tourism industry, I think we've all said this several times. I think you fall ass backwards into this industry. I don't really think there was ever a time when you were 5 years old, 6 years old, and you're like, I want to work in sports tourism. You find it different ways, and you get here in different paths. And I think that's what's so great about this industry is talking to people new who've been in it for 20 years, like yourself, Don, or anyone else. It's all different. I love how everyone got into it. But I mean, kind of going back to what Anthony said, I think all of us to a point, you have to be sports obsessed in some way. And I think all of us, what we're trying to do, whether you played all the way through collegiate sports or you stopped in high school, we're all trying to find that team and kind of keep that competitive edge, and try to find that molding of how can I still stay in sports but not be the actual athlete. I think that's where this is such a great industry. I talk to students all the time. I was adjunct at UA, talk to kids all the time, try to tell them, the easiest way to get into sports is go do ticket sales. I mean, that's the easiest way. Now, it's also the hardest, and you're going to be grinding your butt off for years, making 150 phone calls a day or whatnot. But Once you find this industry, I think it's hard to say it's hard to get out of it because you just enjoy the relationships you build. But for me, I think it goes back to being in South Florida, being surrounded by so many organizations in such a small area. I was sports obsessed. Long story short, my parents went through a divorce, and my grandfather's from Estonia. He's not from America, didn't understand divorce, and kind of gave me some life advice before we moved to Alabama. He said, I don't know what's going to happen in your life in the future, but you need some constants in it no matter where you go. And so unfortunately he cursed me with being a Marlins and Dolphins fan. That was what his message to me was, no matter how bad the Marlins are, and good God, we know they're terrible. They're going to play 162 games a year, no matter good or bad, they're always going to play 162 games. Same with the Heat, 82, Dolphins 16 to 17, Alabama football, basketball, same thing. So I kind of took that when I moved to Alabama, didn't really know anybody. Started playing football and baseball, and that's kind of what I made my identity on, and making friendships that way was through sports. Quickly realized that's what I wanted to do, but didn't know how I was going to do it. Went to the University of Alabama, went to a great time, won 3 or 4. Sorry, Anthony, I lost count how many we won since I was there. But realized during my time there, I wanted to work in sports, but didn't know what I wanted to do and how I was going to do it. When I was an undergrad, for me, I was in marketing, but kind of with the emphasis in sports, but didn't really have any internships. I did random stuff like Northwestern Mutual internships, worked for my dad's IT company, kind of trying to figure out things that I did and didn't like, but knew eventually I was like, if I don't do sports, I'm going to be a miserable person. And I took a random class. I was graduating early for me. I was graduating a semester early, but I had to get my football tickets for my last year. So my buddy was like, hey, take this random intro to sports management class for the graduate program. There's a bunch of football players. It'll be easy. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go into it. First day, I was like, this is what I want to do. Talk to the teacher. He tells me you need to have all this experience, 500 hours of experience. I had none. You have to take the GRE, the GMAT. I had not taken any of that. So in my little short period of time, in my time to study for all that and try to get those hours, I worked construction, studied, passed the GRE, got in with that. And then I, for me, worked to get my first internship was with the Birmingham Bowl, ESPN. We had Florida versus ECU. That was a really good experience. I try to tell people, look into bowl games, because obviously your, sugar bowls and stuff, those are big groups of people that are involved. Your smaller ones, like your Camellia Bowls, your, Tax Slayer, whatever, those are probably only about 4 or 5 people that are actually running those things, and they're really relying on interns. And so I got a good, really, really good indoctrination in the sports industry from whether it was advertising, sales, grassroots marketing, logistics, all of it. So it kind of let me understand from a standpoint of, hey, this is what I like to do, this kind of stuff. I don't like to do this kind of stuff. And so when I got into the sports management program, after I got my hours, I worked there unpaid from September through January full time. It took me a lot of time to get that first internship. And so I had to make calls. I told myself, part of the grad program in UA for sports management is you have to have an internship the entire time. And I told myself, I was like, whatever the first thing that pops up, I'm taking it. I don't know what it is. I'm taking it. I'll do it for a semester and I'll figure it out. Probably go work in collegiate athletics the rest of my life. Well, it was Tuscaloosa Tourism Sports. It was Jay Caston. First thing popped up, had no clue what it was, didn't do any research on it. Just said, hey, I would love to do an interview. Did an interview, got it. Thought I'd do it for a little bit. After the first or second day, I told Jay, I was like, after doing research and understanding what sports tourism was, on a little very small scale, I asked him, I was like, can I stay on the entire time in grad school? And he said, we'd love for you to. Another unpaid position. Unfortunately, it's what this industry, a lot of sports industry is. But that's kind of how I got into it. I got the bug just because I was desperate, didn't know what it was, threw my hat in the ring, and here I am almost 9 years later in the industry. But yeah, no, I think that was probably my first kind of taste in the industry. And then from there, I had some good mentors. Jay was my first really good mentor in this industry. Kind of really told me, hey, if you want to actually make this industry, you're probably gonna have to move. A lot of these, offices, especially on the sports side, are not very big. So you can't really just say, hey, I want to work in this city and then go from there. So from there, I applied for On Sports ETA's website. I went to the Eastern Shore of Maryland. If anyone's familiar with that area, almost Delaware, but Ocean City, Maryland, that kind of area. In Salisbury, Maryland, worked for the Wacomico County Tourism Department out there for about 2 years until a little birdie rang me up, told me I needed to apply for old Bill Buchanan, who, rest in peace, Bill was the interim CEO, called me up, told me I needed to apply for the position. I didn't think I was qualified. He told me I was an idiot, that nobody else would know the area better than me and understand sports, but that he may not be the actual CEO. But if he was, he would definitely give me the job. And the person who became the CEO was no other than Don Staley himself. And Don, do you want me to go tell the story how you actually offered me the job?
Yeah, that's an interesting story, right, Stan?
It is an interesting story. So quick story. I don't want to take too much off from Anthony. I know I'm a talker, so I apologize. Yeah. So when I was leaving, I didn't know I'd come back to Tuscaloosa. I mean, I had no intention. I was just trying to make that next step in my career. I'd been in Maryland for 2 years. Had some great mentors there. James Simmons, literally talked to him the other day. Another great mentor of mine. Really gave me everything I could have possibly do. They gave me a lot of autonomy, but it was time for me after 2 years to kind of take that next step. Didn't know it'd be Alabama, but so it was. I did a couple interviews, did everything else. Bill Buchanan did not become the CEO. You did. And I don't want to go too much into the background of it, but maybe Don wasn't the biggest fan of people that had been in the at Tuscaloosa after him. So he held it against me. And so got the call, was desperately waiting for it. And I was super excited for it. And Don, you've mellowed out with your aging. I can say you're not Coach Staley anymore. You were Don Staley. But back then you were definitely Coach Staley. A lot of F-bombs, a lot of straight to the point. We ain't doing any fluff with this stuff. We're going to tell it how it is. And I appreciate that because that's how I am. I love that stuff. But ran out to my car, took the phone call immediately. Hey, Stan, this is Don Staley. Hey, Don, how's it going? Hey, just want to let you know, we would love to offer you the position. And I was extremely excited, almost cut him off. He's like, but I have to tell you this. I was like, okay. He goes, you weren't my first option. And I was like, wait, what? And he goes, you weren't my first option. To be completely honest with you, I'm a very transparent person. You were probably my 1B to my 1A. The 1A guy, I offered it to him. He didn't want to move from Birmingham. So here we are. So do you want the job? And I said, yes, sir, I do. And he goes, cool. See you in 2 weeks. Bye. Hung up the phone. And that was how I accepted the position to go work for Don. Called my parents immediately. Hey, super excited to live in Birmingham. Oh my God, did you get it? I did. You don't sound very excited. And I was like, well, wasn't the biggest ringing endorsement I've ever received for accepting a job position. And even fast forward to the first day of the job, called me into his office, said, close that door. And a little expletive tirade went on and told me that everything needs to stay in these four walls. Nothing gets out of these four walls. Do you effing understand? And blah, blah, blah. I got the full Coach Staley experience. And then here we are, fast forward to 2024. You're not only a mentor, a great friend of mine, but you're the second father I didn't even know I needed. So I appreciate it. But yeah, that's a little backstory. So if you ever hear Don and I talk about 1B to 1A, I give Don, especially at his retirement party, I gave him a big dig on that. So I'm always his 1B. But yeah, that's long story short, but that's how I got in the industry, essentially.
Well, you know what, Anthony, aren't you glad that you didn't ever have to interview with me?
No, and I can't follow that. I mean, it's downhill from what Stan's story just was, especially with the firework ending.
Before you tell let me just say this. That's right. Coach Staley did hire it. That process did go sort of along those lines. I challenged him right out of the gates. And that's, sometimes in coaching, it works with some players. Sometimes it doesn't. It can backfire. I rolled the dice and felt like, you know what, I'm going to challenge this guy. And let me tell you what, I've been very blessed over a 25-year coaching career. And been out of the coaching business in 7 and have been in the tourism side. And I've been blessed to be around some very, very qualified, incredible people. Stan's definitely within my top 5 that I've ever had to work for me. He was amazing. He did a great job with less. And I'm just proud of him for everything that he did. But again, Anthony, you're lucky that your interview process, I'm sure, was much different. So looking forward to hearing about your process and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, it's and Stan said it best. There's no, one way that somebody gets into this industry, especially on the sports tourism side. For me, it was interesting. And I said some of it in my intro, but I really, I graduated high school in 2005. I have family in the medical, I have family in the sports industry, and I have family in education, and a few other industries. But the two that really stuck out for me were the medical and the sports business side. And my cousin actually has worked in the NHL for pretty much her whole entire career. So there's the little tie to hockey there. And, for me, when I'm sitting there thinking in high school or freshman year of college, like I'm in a biology associate, so I'm starting in medical. That was my first love. I ended up with a biology associate's getting accepted to UAB medical school here in Alabama. And I'm sitting there with my advisor and my mom's sitting there and I'm like, I just don't feel right. I don't feel comfortable. Something just doesn't sit right. Long story short, I ended up meeting a mentor of mine who's become a best friend to me, who is the PhD sports management professor I mentioned, who had the background in minor league baseball. Found him, ended up moving, or not moving, but changing schools to Auburn-Montgomery, because I went to Auburn for a little bit before I ended up finding the sport management. I actually went into agriculture. So you can see two different types: medical, agriculture, really random. And then all of a sudden met that mentor. He told me about sport management, told me about all the opportunities. The rest was history. Ended up having, ended up getting 2 degrees from that. But the one thing that really got me going on the event planning, and as Stan said, the grassroots side, was that professor and the head coach of women's basketball gave me the opportunity to run their fundraising event, which was the golf tournament, which Don later became the concept of Aces for Austin that I know you want me and we'll talk about later.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
so near and dear to my heart, and y'all's too. But I ended up planning that entire golf tournament as a undergrad sport management student with their support, but very little, structure. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it taught me how to fundraise, taught me how to plan an event, taught me how to be good stewards of funding, and all those things. And then I ended up volunteering for state games. People are familiar probably with state games. 40 plus states have them in our country, and Alabama has a pretty strong one. And so that really gave me grassroots of, you planned your own sporting events. You were zero-based budgets. You were marketing, sponsors, getting your venues. You were setting up your venues. Most importantly, you were leading volunteer organizing committees. So you were leading people that were volunteering their time, putting on all these sporting events. Did that for a few years. It really gave me an appreciation for really, really tough and hard work in the sports industry, and that it's not all what we see on TV, right? Pro sports, big time things, like Stan said, even bowl games, they have tons of volunteers. Tons of part-time staff. So it's not like, you have just everything at your disposal that you see when you watch an NFL game or whatever we see on the Olympics, that are upcoming. So it gave me a love and appreciation and really an understanding and a perspective of whether it be marketing people do, what the sponsorship sells, how sales work, obviously venues, working with, most importantly, our Parks and Rec, because as we understand in this industry, specifically on the sports tourism side, our Parks and Rec are probably the most vital piece of our partners because of what they have and the staff and their facilities and their support of what we try to do. So did that for, 6-7 years, actually came back. I had a little stint in sports marketing, did not like full service marketing. Anything from broadcasting. I love being on shows, but what y'all do on the backside, and what Jacob's doing as a producer, man, shout out to y'all. That's a lot of hard work, and it means a lot. And so, I actually had an opportunity when I was out of the sports marketing business to come back to state games to oversee basically the external affairs of it. And it gave me an opportunity to lead, whether it be our multiple interns we had a semester or our small staff of sports organizers. But more, the important part of that was it gave me the opportunity to sit on the opposite side of the table of our CVBs and our sports commissions. I had the opportunity to work with Huntsville CVB, Sports Commission, Birmingham CVB, Dothan, and a variety of others. Gave me an appreciation for what they do and now what I do and what Stan and we all do in this industry. But it also gave me the opportunity to work with a ton of parks and recreation departments across the state, because those are as vital partners to us and what we do than anybody, in my opinion. We have to support what they do every day, Monday through Thursday. But then obviously on that weekend when we can host tournaments and stuff, it's a huge piece of what we try to do. And they're a huge, invaluable piece to what that is. But that really gave me that opportunity to really meet with local leaders, elected officials, state elected officials, and of course, heads of departments through Parks and Rec. And it gave me a love and appreciation for that. And that is how I actually got to know John Wild, the former CEO of Auburn-Opekila Tourism. Amazing person. We all know, a lot of you know him. Amazing person. and a great professional. And so through a network of a committee that I was on at the Alabama State Games, it was USA Team Handball. And he was part of it because the Olympic training site was actually at Auburn University. And so through that network and through us knowing each other, I'm sitting there, oh gosh, almost 6 years ago, and I get an email from him saying, "Hey, we're creating a sports tourism development officer position for our organization. We'd love for you to look at it." I was living in Auburn at the time. I was commuting to Montgomery, which is about a 45-minute drive, and I'm a big family man. I at the time had one child at the time with my lovely wife Lindsay, and I'm big on being with my kids and family and coaching and those kind of things. And I was commuting, so I was losing 10 hours a week for my family. John gave me that opportunity, and my interview process was nothing like yours, Stan. But I will say that the history and the scope of what I was able to accomplish and the things that I was able to experience, I think really set me up for success for this side of our sports business industry. Because I really didn't have to do much interviewing with John. I think because of our relationship, because of our knowledge of working with each other, and my resume, but also I did sit down with our now CEO, Robin Bridges, who at the time was our VP, and had probably about a 4-hour quote interview, more of a discussion and coffee with her. And the rest is history. And so I've been here going on 6 years now, and it's been the best part because I think the things that I'm able to do on this side of the sports industry is helpful because of everything I experienced earlier. So if I'm talking to any young person or anybody looking to get in this industry, I'll tell you there's not one way you can get in. There's multiple ways. Just hearing Stan and I talk, those are two very different ways, but very similar in nature in a lot of ways.
Well, obviously, great stories to get to where you are today. Real quick, if you had one event that you were part of, what's the most memorable event that you guys were part of that you're proud of, or was a crazy event? What might that be?
I mean, I think for me, I'm going to say two. I'm going to kind of split one with my event planning days. It's super gratifying to see, especially when I was really part of the overseeing of the Alabama State Games. Um, I felt really proud of. I'm big on. I want to leave it better than I found it, and that organization has been humming since the early '80s. And we all know youth sports events and really adult sports have changed so much, especially lacking the grassroots. Grassroots are really tough to maintain, but it was gratifying for me the last 3 years at the state games. We grew the number of athletes, we grew the number of revenue that we were bringing into the nonprofit. And we also increased the economic impact in room nights that the event had seen for really history. But really to see something that is kind of motherhood and apple pie. It has the sports part to it, but that organization and that event was more than just sports. It had the academic scholarships to it, the health and wellness, and the good citizenship, God and country type feel. And that was super gratifying for me because you really did do everything for that event. And you found a lot of great volunteer people that were dedicated to it. And so that one I would say on my event planning side. And for AO Tourism, I can't single out one, but I would say some of the funnest ones have been either our War Eagle Run Fest, our half marathon, or working with our NCAA when we hosted gymnastics regional. That's a really fun event. But I really say there's a plethora of ones that I've had fun with, but I would say those two.
Definitely hard to narrow it down. I'll go with two as well. I'll do definitely one from Wacomico, my time in Wacomico County, right out of college. One of the biggest events they run is they run the USSSA Eastern World Series for softball. That's 3 straight weeks of softball. Every week is a new age group. I mean, you got people from all over the East Coast coming up in there, and you got like you said, it's a lot. Every week is not only is it a new week of kids, you're doing an opening ceremony, which is big productions, whatever, and the good thing about Wacomico County, and there's a big lineage of people in the industry. There's about 5 of us. I mean, Andrew Kurtz, Ellie Marks, Cole Lacey, Chip Waterwoods, now in Ocean City. We all came through Oconoco County, so it's kind of a close-knit group. They've kind of got a nice pipeline there that not only are people like moving on to bigger and better things from that area, but we've all kind of stayed in the industry and we all kind of stayed close together. But I think one thing they do a really good job there is they give you autonomy. I joke and say probably more than you probably deserve right out of college. I'll say that. It's kind of the sink or swim method. But yeah, they gave my first year, they just gave that to me. Three straight weeks. You got to do opening ceremony. You got to do a whole 1,000-person speech every single week. You got 27 fields with, you got from a standpoint of, you got, trainers, you've got, site hosts, all that stuff, 3 counties, 27 fields. You have to do that for 3 straight weeks and then for 2 years. So that is a brutal sink or swim. And if you screw that up, you pretty much are getting fired. There's no other way to do that. So, but really cool to see that. It's one of those events. I think, Don, you and I have talked about that. Anthony and I know for sure have talked about this every year. It's one of those events that you're going like crazy leading up to it. You're in the middle of it. You're just trying to survive. And then it's the after of it all when you're with your team and you're like having a beer and you're like, wow, we just did that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That nice gratification. Yeah. When everything's done. And I don't think you get that much anymore. And that's kind of that's what we all strive to do from a sports standpoint, is have that, wow, look what we just accomplished kind of thing. Let's breathe. So that would be number one from an event management standpoint from there. But definitely for me in Tuscaloosa would be Super 7 or Super 6, as Don always calls it, because that's when he got it. But during COVID, that was my first year to really truly run that event myself. 2017, I kind of came in. Sarah Hegeman did a good job of leading up to it. I had some good experience from 2015 of being behind Jay Caston and Sarah at the time. But really, 2020 was my year that it was fully mine, running that entire event myself. High school football championships in Alabama that people don't know. But then all of a sudden it was COVID. So we didn't even know we were going to host it. We probably got a month and a half prior to telling us, hey, we're running this thing. We're doing it. You got all these COVID protocols. You got everything you have to deal with. So not only is that a monster of an event to run yourself on a normal year, you got 14 teams coming in, bands, everything else, 3 days, your giant college stadium. But then we had to do COVID restrictions. So that was, definitely I think I slept for like 2 straight days after that event for sure. But those are some memorable ones, and here in Springfield, I think been there only for about 8 months, but something that's been kind of near and dear to my heart. We do a Springfield Sports Commission Awards. So we just got done with that about last middle of June with that. And that we have 850 plus people that come, and we're honoring, whether it be from the top schools to the lowest schools, and just be able to see and kind of give back. Don, I know it's something you talked about when I was with you about wanting to do something of that standpoint. I know Donnie Leeds did a good job with the lab awards and things like that in Tuscaloosa, but being able to give back to, obviously a lot of, your 5-star athletes, those are the ones, but those smaller schools that, like in Tuscaloosa, like Gordo's or something like that don't really probably get a lot of, recognition, but just seeing those families and seeing those kids get this recognition that maybe they're not going to, Mizzou or Kansas or like that. They may be going to a Drury or an Evangel around this area, but they're just as good too. And it's cool from a standpoint of, I did not have much to do with that at all. I've only been here about 8 months. But it was really cool to see something from that standpoint of maybe one from an event logistics standpoint, but seeing that kind of what our sports commission, our industry can do, not only from a economic impact standpoint, but giving back locally and kind of seeing how much of an impact that truly has. So I know I said 2, but I ended up going with 3. But I want to give some love to all 3 of the places.
I'm glad that you did. I think that we're up against a break.
Yeah.
So we'll come back here in a second, and we'll take a quick break.
Make sure your HVAC unit is up to speed, keeping your family comfortable all year long with Bibb Heating and Air. Bibb Heating and Air is a fully licensed and insured HVAC company providing all of West Alabama with first-class service every single time. Devin Morgan is the owner and operator, who's a buddy of mine and personal endorsement here. He installed my new heat pump at my house, and I could not be more pleased with the process. Quick, attentive, quality service. Cannot recommend him enough. So call Bibb Heating and Air today if your system needs a checkup or if you need a new unit. Mention The Reckoning Sports Tourism Podcast, and my pal Devin will knock off your dispatch fee. That's $50 in savings for mentioning The Reckoning. That's Bibb Heating and Air. Give them a call at 205-789-6236.
And welcome back to The Reckoning Sports Podcast. Don and I are all brewed up here in the moon room. Got some nice ice cold brews here. It's always fun when you can have a conversation with friends and drink a beer at the same time.
Say what, that neon,
Call it business.
the neon moon goes down quickly.
It
Nice and
does.
smooth.
They go down too easy, a little bit too easy. I want to hop back into our conversation with Anthony Terling and Stan Adams. I'll start with you, Anthony. You already kind of made reference to one of the big events that the Auburn-Opekila area is known for. That's Aces for Austin, something that's kind of dear to your heart. And then I also want to talk about pickleball down in Auburn. Auburn's got a phenomenal pickleball facility. So why don't you chat a little bit about those two things for us?
Yeah, so Aces for Austin is something that, has kind of turned into a small little, tourism event, but it's a charity event that is near and dear to my wife and I's heart. And I want to say first, thank you to our Auburn-Opelika tourism team. My CEO, Robin Bridges, is 1000% behind us and supporting us, and everyone else on our team or on the AO tourism team does. But this started, it was actually named after my son and in memory of my son. It is not supporting my son. It is just, my son had a rare disease that only 45 people are known to have in the world. I could talk hours about him and that condition, but we'll save all that. I encourage people, if you want to find out more, go to austinfirstfoundation.org. But we started out, again, my background is what we've all talked about, right? Sports event planning. I've been lucky to work for a lot of great nonprofits and understanding fundraising, understanding philanthropy and giving back. And that's just a natural part that I was raised to be. And then, frankly, God put me in a place that I had to make a decision. So my son had the condition. We didn't know how to help, but one thing we knew is we wanted to help people with rare disease. Long story short, 1 in 10 Americans have rare disease. So a couple of years ago, this was back in 19, we started the charity named Austin First Foundation. And I said, of course, I want to put on a fundraising event, and a golf tournament came because in my first part of what I was telling you, my history, the AUM golf tournament, that was literally my first ever opportunity to ever run an event, became the concept of Aces for Austin. And the concept is we work with a sales and marketing class for sport management. So it's a real life experience for these young people and these students that are learning how to put on an event, but 2, how to sell and market an event. And it's got a great story, and I'm biased because it's about my child, but most importantly, it's about a journey of someone that, was born with a rare disease, but we're turning a negative into a positive, right? And to help people. So we started out in 2020, actually starting to put on the first golf tournament in June. And then, COVID, as Stan mentioned, we all know about what happened. And so we postponed it. We ended up having the first tournament last year, and Stan and Don and so many people from the sports tourism industry, from sports, from, obviously our community here in Auburn and Opelika really showed out. And we were able to raise over $20,000 in that inaugural year. Flip to this year was our second annual Aces for Austin, and it is a charity scramble that just supports rare disease. And we were able to have it again this year, June 10th, and we have raised $30,600. So it's a very important piece for me and my family, but really this is part of what AO Tourism, one of our core values is servant leadership. And so to me, that is a reason why I know my boss and our leadership and our board fully support me doing this. And we have some of our staff come out and play. Some of our staff come and volunteer for us. But at the end of the day, it's been gratifying for me, humbling to see people like Don and Stan. AJGA is one of a client that, that I host, but more importantly, they're not a client, they're friends and they're partners. They support, just so many people in this industry have supported it, and I can't thank them enough, but it just shows how what we do in the tourism world is not, yes, it's about heads and beds. It's about economics. It's about, what we do for our community, but all the things that we do create legacy, create impacts, and create change in a positive way. There are so many nonprofits that I know Stan and Don and myself and anyone in this industry can talk about that we help their events, we support them charitably, but most importantly, we help encourage them. So that's Aces for Austin. The pickleball, look, you can't come to Auburn-Opelika, especially Opelika, without having a conversation about pickleball. And Don knows very well. And look, this started out with 1 or 2, 3 individuals in Opelika. One was a citizen. One happened to be a Parks and Rec director for Opelika, who actually played pickleball. And it was about a 10-year process. Where this citizen was basically, positively bugging the director of parks and the mayor to talk about pickleball. I think a lot of people don't realize pickleball has been around since the 60s. It's not this new sport. It's just caught fire. And long story short, they had the vision to build very unique facility. They started out with 12 courts individually fenced. The unique part of it is covered like a pavilion. So you've got literally best of both worlds. I mean, we live in Alabama, so you've got heat, you've got summer thunderstorms, but you can play through all of that at the Opelika pickleball facility. And then they decided to build 12 more. So we currently sit to this day, 24 courts individually fenced, all covered with that pavilion, all with LED lights. I can keep going on. We can broadcast on television because they've got a gig, broadband going to it. And we've hosted a lot of great events. But the really neat part about this is a nonprofit created from pickleball, and it's called the Opelika Pickleball Club. And so it's just been an amazing ride. And I can tell you there's some news that may come out soon where that facility may be getting even better.
Let me just say 2 quick things here. Number one, as far as Aces for Alston and Robin Bridges' leadership, and of course, John Wild, who he's in all of our thoughts and prayers. I want to say this, it used to be in our industry where it was all predicated on nothing but heads in the beds. That's what we were supposed to do. One thing about a negative that COVID was so negative. However, there was some positives that did come out of it. And I'm seeing our industry transition a little bit where we are looking, sure, heads in the beds are still going to be critically important. You've got to get the ROI. However, it's okay now for us to put into our own communities. And I'll get off my soapbox, but I'm going to tell you what I saw down there in Auburn-Opekila, it started off for the locals and allowing you and your team to be able to bring in tournaments. Well, what happened is you did such a great job, you had to build 12 more. And that's a testament to the fact that, both with Aces for Alston, the leadership, with Robin and John and your board believing in what you're doing. And then the other side of it is locally, let's take care of our locals, but let's see if we can't also up that ROI by bringing in more and more competitive tournaments. And that's what you've done. And you're right. I was actually there to play on those courts. You guys hosted an event and I snuck onto the courts. I was already down there in Florida and I came up and I slid by and I got on the courts for a minute. They thought I was in the tournament. Sorry, but I had to play. And first class without question. As far as the golf tournament, Stan, you got to get your dad, me, you, and who was the big guy that you brought?
Chad.
Wow. Talk about a heavy hitter. We got to go back to that golf tournament and maybe we'll win it this next time.
Yeah, when we come in second, I think it was. Yeah, we got to go back and take it.
Yep, 2025 we'll have it. And Don, you mentioned it real quick. I just wanted to add for pickleball, your experience of having, you came during a tournament, but you were still able to quote get on the court as a public user of it. That's important. That's important. I know for me, and more important to Sam Bailey, director of park. Shout out to Sam. Shout out to Mayor Gary Fuller. And so many other people. Jim Young. There's so many people that make this happen in the community, and they do it first for the community. You don't build facilities just in hopes to host, maybe 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 tournaments a year. You build them for the community. And so, you can come out on a Monday, a Tuesday morning, midday, afternoon, and they're packed. That's why the second set were built, the second set of 12. And now they're packed still, because when we've got Southern Union, a junior college in Opelika, and Auburn University, the big animal, you've got a lot of players. So morning, you're seeing your older ages. By the afternoon, you're seeing probably your college age, people coming to play. but it stays packed. Of course, we run tournaments a year that generate revenue for the local club, the economic impact, the heads and beds, all those things. But the transient impact is insane. One quick story, I'm standing there doing a spiel on that facility, talking to some local groups on how it was built, how much it cost, some of the impact figures. And all of a sudden, a guy walks up and he's with an RV group, and he brought 12 different people from 7 different states, all in RVs, had never been to Auburn or Opelika before, did not come for a tournament. And I said, "What brought you here?" "This facility. We travel the country in RV. We love traveling and seeing new places. Y'all have, great resources for RV. We have great RV parks. And we wanted to play pickleball." And he said, "And this facility is marketed very well to where we know about it. And our organization and our partners in Opelika, we digitally market the facility itself, not just for tournaments, but for those transient leisure travelers." So that's how impressive the leadership and the vision was for Opelika to build pickleball. And watch out, Auburn is building.
This is a tasty burger.
So Auburn-Opelika is going to be pickleball mecca, or already is, excuse me.
Real quick, shameless plug here in a second, but when I was in Florida, Central Florida, we had 4 pickleball courts in our retirement community I lived in for a little while, and played pickleball 7 days a week. Loved it. Actually got pretty decent. And came back home here, and unfortunately, I haven't played really since March, so I'm missing it. But we're going to give you some competition, I believe, here in the future. This project that's happening over there in Northport, River Run Park, let me just tell you, the gentleman that is a developer, you guys have probably heard of a complex called Graham Park up there in Westville, Indiana, one of the biggest mega sports complexes in the country. He's a big pickleball guy, and I can't wait for him to get here and help us build this pickleball that we're going to do. So yours truly will actually have a place to play. And if we build what we're talking about building, I got a feeling we're going to do like we do in every other sport with Auburn and Tuscaloosa. There's going to be some competition. But until then, I can't wait to get back down and play on your courts. But anyways, real quick, before I get on to Stan here, talk about Springfield and Allie and Taz and what he's doing up there, please give John my best. And my buddy, my partner in crime back in the day when we got the first Super 6, Mayor Anders. Ron Anders was an amazing guy that helped pull that thing off between Tuscaloosa and Auburn and Opelika. So tell him I said hello.
I will. And look, I'll wrap up by saying you mentioned Mayor Anders and John. And look, this Rome wasn't built in a day, and the way Auburn-Opelika tourism is, and the way we have relationships and our partnerships and the trust we've built started with John Wild and Robin Bridges, and then everybody from then. But we are very valuable, or very lucky and blessed to have like Mayor Gary Fuller in Opelika, Mayor Ron Anders in Auburn, the council, the leadership, and I cannot, forget Auburn Athletics and Auburn University. We have great relationships to be able to utilize those facilities and those opportunities to create special experiences when we do host youth adult events. So it's a neat thing to see our community, collaborating and coming together when, these are 2 cities and we just happen to help and represent both. But we've got a great thing going, and it's only going to get better.
Well, listen, I'll tell you what, having been down there many times and actually coming through a couple of years ago, we were already unhappy being down there in Florida. We actually contemplated moving to Opelika there in Daphne. You do have a great thing going on, and you've got great collaboration for sure with your university. And so, again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for the stories, all the information. My buddy up there in Springfield, tell me a little bit about that. First of all, tell me about how Allie's doing. I want a picture of Taz in his little coat and booties. Tell me who Taz is and how's he doing with the cold. And tell me about Springfield. Tell me about your facilities, all that.
Yeah, yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, and obviously, like I said, grew up in Alabama, was with you in Tuscaloosa for 6 years, but got to the point where I felt like I kind of had done everything I could do in Tuscaloosa. There's a lot of great things coming on board in Northport and other things Tuscaloosa are doing, but I at the moment couldn't wait around for the time being. So I was looking for the next step, like I did when I went to Maryland, Tuscaloosa. Really was looking for an area that was fully bought in from a community standpoint, but then also, number one, had the facilities. And not only had the current facilities, but also had plans to actually build more and not only just saying they're going to build, but actually do it and have a plan set out. So, but yeah, Springfield, Allie's doing great. Taz is my pit bull that we rescued during COVID. He was not acclimated to the weather when we first moved here. Moved here in November, so they're about 8, almost 9 months now. But when it came to the winter, we had a little stretch here for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, where it was negatives and it was ice. My wife, Allie, said that he needed booties, and I said, I'll be damned if I owned a dog, especially a pit bull that will wear booties. That quickly changed when he couldn't walk on the ice. So that was a little different. But Allie's doing great. She actually works for a hotel in town called Oasis Hotel and Convention Center. She's a sales manager there. And her actual markets are corporate and sports. So we work together. She'll show around my clients. She'll show the convention center, show the rooms. So we work collaboratively, work all the time. So it's actually really cool situation we have here. But yeah, no, Springfield's great. Springfield is everything I was looking for, and more. I've been blown away. Obviously you can read stuff, do research on things, but we're, as opposed to Tuscaloosa, we had 100,000 people. We got 170,000 people here in Springfield. The metro area is about 480,000 probably people. The metro area here, but for us, we're Southwest Missouri. We're really kind of drivable from a lot of areas. We're about 2.5 hours south of Kansas City, 3 hours south of St. Louis. We're about 2 hours from Fayetteville, 4 hours from Memphis, 4 hours from Tulsa. So, I think we're 22 miles west of the actual physical center of the United States. So when you say Midwest and center of the United States, we're it. So some of the things that I was looking for too was having an airport. We have an airport here. That was some of the things we lost bids at in Tuscaloosa, was not having an airport. We've got an airport, tons of flights going in and out. You've got your American Uniteds, things like that. So that's not a hindrance to me. But really, from a facility standpoint, I think we all know on this Zoom call, Huddle Up Group and John Schmieder and Cole McKeel, what they've done, they're really great. But something that I think a lot of people in the industry have done, have kind of leaned into what they do, is from like an auditing standpoint, or kind of just a master plan. They'll come in, they'll kind of look at your organization and kind of say, okay, you guys are really great in this area, you're weak in this area, this is where you need to improve. And if you did these things, this will really take you to the next step. Well, they did that in 2019 here. And when I say they did everything and they're planning to do everything, I am not kidding. They use that thing as the Bible, that study that the Huddle Up Group did here. And the board reiterates it all the time. The city council reiterates it. The mayor, everyone around here uses that Huddle Up Group, audit essentially as the Bible. And when I tell you that, even since I've been here, I mean, from the moment I've been here, they technically opened it up. One of our main facilities, they've opened up since I've been here. It opened up in October. I got here in November, but the real opening was January. Called Wilson Logistics Arena. Wilson Logistics is a big trucking company based out of Springfield. The 120,000 square feet. It's about 6,300 seats, retractable. And it's also got an additional 30,000 square feet below for an ag hall, but could be an expo center area. Right there for even in that facility itself alone, we've hosted, just in that short amount of time, USA BMX Indoor Nationals. We just signed a multi-year contract with them. That'll be here. But we run everything in there. We've got we have an arena football team that just started here. They play in there. We've got cheer and dance. We've got state wrestling. So there's definitely big concerts there. And even on that site, it's called the Ozark Empire Fairgrounds. Been there forever. The arena's new, but there's a place called the E-Plex that has two different hall wings that are 30,000 square feet apiece. We've done archery in there as well. It's all in one location, so parking's not an issue. Right near downtown. So that's kind of one of our main things. But kind of part of our plan, the Huddle Up Group plan talked about, was we need an anchor indoor facility. Thus, the Wilson Logistics Arena was built. That was one of the main things they talked about. We needed more turf facilities. So one of our main areas called Cooper Sports Complex. On that area, it's managed by our Parks and Rec. We've got our baseball and softball complex. Killian's our softball complex. It's 6 softball fields right now, 1 championship softball field. It's where Missouri State actually plays, one of the many universities we have around here. We've actually hosted the NAIA World Series there as well. And then also the Cooper baseball complex, which is right next to it. That's 5 fields. Part of this big mega plan is they are going to turf all those fields. So we'll have 11 turf fields. They're going to add a championship field to the baseball complex. So we'll be really able to compete with a lot of, these bigger tournaments. On the same location, we have Lake Country Soccer. Don, I don't even remember. Do you remember a guy named John Markey? So John Markey runs Lake Country Soccer. His kids and I went to Oak Mountain High School. He's the guy who runs it here, believe it or not. Small world, big Alabama fan here in Springfield.
And you had mentioned, did I hear you mention Killian?
Yeah, Killian. Yeah.
You know that Killian was a group that built Foley.
Oh, I didn't realize that. No, I didn't realize. Small world. There's connection again. But yeah, Lake Country is on the same actual area. They've actually started that project already, moving dirt, already starting that. That'll be done in February. They've got 17 soccer fields out there, 2 indoor. That doesn't include the 17.
Wow.
And they're turfing 8 of those. We have a championship complex there already. They're talking about bringing a USL 2 team here as well. And on the same grounds, we have our Cooper tennis facility, which is also managed by our Parks and Rec. That's 18 outdoor courts all lit. They got 12 indoor courts as well. And there's 1 championship court there too. So that's just kind of something that really, and then in the turfing of all those fields, like I said, soccer's already started. Dirt's already been moved. That'll be done in February. Then the next phase will be to do softball and baseball. And it just continues. One of the things too, we have another new complex that's been here for about a year. It's an SFM facility now. It's called Allison Sports Town. That's 12 outdoor full-size soccer fields, 4 are turfed. The other 8 are just grass. And then indoors, they've got 8 volleyball, 4 basketball, and 2 indoor soccer. So that's right across from the airport as well. So when I said I was looking for something that not only had a community buy-in, had everything facility-wise, not only already, but what we're looking to do from a big picture standpoint, I mean, I couldn't say anything more about this area. The community has been great. And something that I think is really huge that I think, there's people in Tuscaloosa and Northport that definitely, from a community standpoint, throw back in themselves in the community. I've always been envious of Anthony. Anthony's literally one of my best friends, not only in this industry, but in the entire world. Anthony and I talk all the time. So when Anthony talked about we were competing, we always kind of talked. But one of the things I was always envious of Anthony was the community aspect that Auburn had. I make fun of them, though we're a family, whatever, all that stuff all the time. But they really are. I mean, it's not just a phrase. It really is. And that was something that I looked for in the community. And when you say you got community buy-in here, I'm not kidding. You've got major players here. So obviously everyone knows Bass Pro Shops. Johnny Morris is the guy around here. Bass Pro Shops started in Springfield, Missouri. So Johnny Morris, we have the biggest Bass Pro Shop in the country, not Memphis. 560,000 square feet. We have the #1 aquarium in the country. Just got voted for the 4th year in a row. Wonders of Wildlife is a whole other aspect. We've got buy-ins from them.
Stan, this is like an infomercial right now.
Yes.
I mean,
and it's easy to sell, man. It's easy to sell.
When I see you out there at the next conference, I'm going to be crying in my beer, hearing all the stuff you just talked about, plus all the things that we run out of time on. I mean, my God, you're sitting in a great position up there. I didn't realize you had an airport. So I think I need to make that trip. But also, we didn't even get a chance to talk about conferences and conventions and whatnot. But, between Paul, help me out, Paul and Raleigh.
Paul Sheehan. Yeah, he's in North Carolina.
And Garrett. And we've got a host of others, some of the young bucks out there.
Yep.
Hopefully you invite the old man to sit in with you guys so you guys can all brag about your facilities. But I'm going to tell you what, here in Northport, we're getting ready to take it up a notch. So maybe I'll be able to bring something to the table.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've got a lot of good offers here, but you're talking about some of the kind of the up and coming people in this industry and the great people we have. I mean, Anthony and I are both, blessed and privileged to be on the Sports ETA YP committee. The Sports ETA. And if you know anything about it, feel free to reach out. Google it. If anyone's, watching this podcast, new to the industry, mentor and mentee committees, all that kind of stuff. So we're very big on giving back. I think Anthony and I both talked about in our spiel how people had to take a chance on us. And they not only took a chance on us, they stayed with us and helped mentor us to this day. And that's the biggest thing in this industry. I think what's so big is the relationships you build. I know everyone talks about that in other industries, but it's very big. We talked about, off air, Zach and I talked about, he knew Ellie Marks. I replaced Ellie in Wacomico County. He ran an event with her in Bryan College Station. Anthony and I, we'd talk about, hey, do you know this guy? Do you know this person? But really when it comes to it, when I got in the industry in 2016, if I was not the oldest, I was definitely youngest. I was definitely tied for the youngest. I think I was 23, 22 at the time. Connect Sports was massive, conference in our industry, and I had to be introduced through other people that kind of, people that are still in this industry today, but they were the ones that kind of introduced me to certain people. Now it is completely flipped on its head in this industry. This is a lot younger industry, a lot more energy, new ideas, people that are actually, we joke that we didn't decide to go in this industry. Now, UA and other places, I'm sure Auburn, there is sports tourism as an actual, degree you can get. That wasn't a thing back then. So the industry is becoming more well known, and because of that, you gotta, give it back, pay it forward, kind of that kind of thing. I think that's what I love to do. I know I've got tons of, I've got interns that are now working for Virginia Blue Ridge, former interns and kind of stuff like that. I think Anthony and I both recognize that there's great up and coming people in this industry, and you need to help those, because it's only going to take this industry to another level. And I don't know if Anthony got anything else to add on that.
No, I think it's you said it best, and I think it's a value to those that have come before us. Don and everybody that has such a wealth of knowledge. I was blessed to start working for an individual that had worked with the IOC and the USOC and helped bring the '96 Olympics to Atlanta, but specifically soccer to Birmingham. So I was able to start, with that, and shout out to another mentor, Mark Riker. But those are people that literally poured into us, and I think, I don't want to leave anybody out as far as our young professionals, but like an example of when NCAA bids, if anybody's bidding on NCAA stuff right now for Division 1 through 3 with the on location stuff, it's a lot. It's a big change. And, one specific person, I pick up the phone and he texts me as Lucas, out of Boise. And then Rachel out of, Valley Forge. I mean, there's just so much that we encourage and we help each other with, but also, we share ideas, we share good and bad stories. If we're looking at an event organizer, the same thing the event organizer should do. Hey, how does that sports commission work? How does that DMO or CVB, handle working with rights holders? But we do the same. And so I think the young professionals of this industry are super valuable, but I would also be remiss to say the people that came before us help us move into those opportunities and leadership.
Honestly, we've missed so much. I mean, I've enjoyed talking so much with you guys. This has been amazing to catch it. We could actually do 2 or 3 more shows. You were just going down the mentoring part of our industry, and the fact that we've all been given opportunities by people who were before us, myself included. But I'll tell you what, we're up against it. And Zach, I tell you what, every time I hang out with these guys, I feel like I've gained knowledge.
Yeah.
And I know down at your time in College Station, Bryan College Station, your facilities, all the things that you did. But, this is a great industry. And if you're out there watching this for the first time, really give it serious consideration, because it's such a rewarding profession and an industry to be part of. And I want to thank these 2 guys.
Thanks, guys, so much for coming on and being a part of the first episode here with us.
What? Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
German? Forget it, he's rolling.
Great conversation with Stan and Anthony. I mean, they really did a great job promoting their facilities, their venues, their destinations. You mentioned Stan sound back with an infomercial there for Springfield. And I tell you what, I think I might have to pull up the Realtor app and see what's on the market up there in Springfield, Missouri, because those are some outstanding facilities. And also you mentioned, we talked a lot about the pickleball down in Auburn-Opekila. I'm going to have to get some pickleball here, and I'm going to have to get out on a court somewhere, find a court somewhere here in Tuscaloosa. Might be a tall task, but I need to get into it, because I
tell you what, as big as you are going to cover some space up there, you'll be an imposing figure across the net for sure. And it's dangerous if you get playing this sport, man. And I agree with you. These are 2 young movers and shakers in this industry. You see them, they're like rock stars when they go to these conferences, conventions. and they do great work. They're both in incredible cities. They get great support. I'm obviously very proud of Stan, who worked for us here at Tuscaloosa. And but I would tell you this: this is an example of what kind of shows that we're going to have going forward. And I hope that you enjoyed today's show. The future shows. Tune in. The platforms are going to be, of course, LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. Hopefully, we'll be on Spotify. If you're interested in supporting the show, we're working at Patreon. And then also, you can directly email me at leestaley@snapsportstourism.com. The next show will be just as exciting with some local leaders here in our community. And then after that, the next show will probably be a destination. I can't announce right now what destination that is, but it's one here in Alabama, and I'm very excited about it.